Hi, this is Daphne Graves, and I'm going to be doing my third Train the Trainers presentation. And this one is on a specific situation and incorporating assistive technology into it. And so I chose to do the scenario of Axel and his troubled behavior in a classroom, as well as his struggle in areas of reading and taking instruction. And so I did the CDC milestones checklist, and I have kind of filled it out. Now the situation that I was given wasn't super extensive as to, what his exact behaviors and capabilities were, so I just went off of what information I had. So some of them I wasn't able to see if he had that skill or not. But what I did get was enough information to know that he is developmentally behind. So how I know that is because so I just went based off of these checklists, and I X'd off the ones that I knew he did have down, and then I circled the ones that I knew that he was going to be struggling with. So in the social emotional area, I put that he gets excited when around other children. It does say he gets along with other children, and then sometimes he will not get along with them, just depending on how he's feeling that day. And then he is showing more independence. He's doing things himself. He shows defiant behavior. His mom, I think, says that he's like a troubled kid. And so he also is able to kick. She said he kicks about just anything. And then he climbs from furniture without help. So I knew those things he could do. And the other things that I knew he could not do were saying sentences with 2 to 4 words. It was saying that they were concerned about his speech because he was not speaking, and when he did speak, he got frustrated because his peers and teachers didn't understand him. And then he follows simple instructions. It said he did not follow instructions at all. So then he also, I circled points to things in a book and names, pictures in a book, because his mom did mention that he does not have any interest in books. So I'm assuming he probably is not going to be looking at books or very interested in them. If a teacher offers it to him and is asking him questions, he's probably not going to be paying much attention. So, and then follows 2-step instructions such as pick up your shoes and then put them in the closet. He's not following instructions at this point, so we know he is behind in that area. And so then I just checked off these areas that are more of the you should be concerned if box, which means he is probably behind where he needs to be in his age group. So I checked off that he is missing milestones, and he does not use 2-word phrases. As far as I know from the scenario, he's not really speaking much at all. And if he is, it's probably gibberish, and that's why the teachers and peers are not understanding, because he's trying to say things, but it's not coming out as words. And at this point, he should know how to phrase certain words. And then he doesn't follow simple instructions. Like I said, it stated clearly that he doesn't follow instructions. So next I used the ASQ, and I also filled that out just according to what I knew. So I flipped through all these pages. So I just went through and X'd off kind of where I think he was. So again, it's pretty similar. He was strong in like being able to kick things, like kick a ball and things like that. And walking fairly well, but not running. So he can't run, which is pretty far behind developmentally, because usually around 1.5 and to 2, they start running. So, after that, so I just went through, kind of checked him off as best as I could. This one, the ASQ is a lot more specific, so going through it with such a generic explanation was a little bit more difficult. As for the trainers, so the questions was, did you, or how did you use the CDC checklist, and did I use another age to see if he got more checks on that? And I did not use another CDC milestone checklist because he is definitely behind in his age group in some areas, but I don't think it's because he doesn't understand how to do things. I'm thinking it's just because he has a delay that is causing him to be frustrated, and maybe causing him to like act out. So, I mean, I know he is behind in the 2-year-old checklist, but I think it's because of a specific delay and not necessarily he's just totally behind, because he can still, he plays with toys on his own, and has interests in things, and he can walk and he can climb on things, and so it's not like he's not understanding necessarily on a 2-year-old level. It's just that he is having some trouble in one area that I think is causing some certain frustration that might be leading to him acting out. And then I used the CDC checklist initially to determine if he was behind his peers. And he was missing quite a few marks relating to it, like following directions, running, and his speech. But based on the results, I determined he was going to need some extra assistance. So I think it would just require the teacher to be working a little bit more one-on-one with him in the reading area, because I think that is one of the biggest areas he's lacking, because he's not able, or like not necessarily reading, but just speech. He's not able to communicate with his peers. And then running is a little bit of a concern. So there's got to be a missed milestone there. Maybe he's just not as comfortable walking, or he's not practicing walking as much and is just kind of trying to be in his comfort zone, which I think might be where he is with his speech as well. So I think the best way to use milestones, if you are going to be using milestones in a classroom, would be to observe a child first. And I would say observe them for around a week, and keep your checklist nearby to just be checking off the milestones that they're hitting throughout the entire week. So that way you have a really good gauge of milestones that they've definitely hit, and maybe milestones that you haven't seen yet. But I think a week would be a good amount of time to use the milestones, because they're not going to hit every single milestone and show every single thing in one day. But throughout a week, they should be hitting those things. As for the ASQ, I think it's a fantastic tool. As I was reading through them, it definitely almost seemed like a really good tool for parents as teachers to use, where they're stepping in and checking on where the kid is at and, exactly what they can accomplish. So it's kind of harder with younger kids, especially, Axel's age as a 2-year-old. Because it's hard to keep a 2-year-old's attention for as long as you would need to do that. So I would say if you are going to be using ASQs in a classroom and using them effectively with this age group, I would say do a couple of the exercises, let them take a 15-30-minute break, and then let them do a couple more exercises with you just until you can get all the way through. But I would say do the ASQ in a day if you can, because it is more like sit down and do this with your kid. Just because you can see, if you have all the tools with you, you can see where they are in just one day, because it is just a quiz. So So these assessment tools are super useful as early intervention tools. These can help a lot with understanding, where a kid exactly is, what they're missing, what milestones that they are not hit on. So that would be fantastic to catch an early sign of, hey, they're not reading at the level they should be, so we need to be working on this. Or if you're seeing more severe delays, then getting them help. So the assessments that I used indicated that Axel is definitely, he has a delay, and it's causing him to be frustrated and act out. I think that's what I have gathered from the both of the things. So two strategies that I would use with Axel is I would be reading to him a lot. So, sitting him down and reading a book to him myself, asking him questions about it, see if he can point things out to me. And that will also work on his attention span. If you're just sitting him down a lot more often, just working with him one-on-one. And then working on, like how to pronounce things. And this is another great way to hit on behavioral issues, because you can use books like, I know in the infant toddler classroom up in the preschool, there is a couple books on behavior, like Hands Are Not for Hitting, which is one of the best ones, I think, because it helps those kids who are, just violent and, or they're frustrated and they want to do something about it, so they hit a kid. That is a great way to show them what are your hands used for, other than hitting, because hitting is not what they're supposed to be for. So, hands are for playing, hands are for clapping. It shows all kinds of different things. So that can be another great way to introduce a behavioral problem, or work on a behavioral problem, not introduce one. And then I said another awesome strategy I would use is it said he was interested in like mechanical tools, things that like had like batteries and like where it was sounds or things like that he could play with. So I said use those to teach him sounds and letters and referring pictures with their names, so that he can be familiar with reading things or just being able to pronounce certain things. So have like, I know when I was younger, I had this caterpillar and you pressed each one of its legs and it said the sound of the letter. So it was like f or k. So when you press certain things, and that's a great way to start introducing letters and sounds to kids who are not really understanding or can't pronounce them themselves, who have issues with speech. And then a good way to help him out with running. I said use a stroller, a toy lawnmower, a grocery cart, or any pushable toy with wheels to make him feel a little bit more comfortable with walking, which I think would gradually help him transition into running. So the last part was how assistive technology is helpful and if this child would need any assistive technology. And so I think assistive technology is fantastic for kids with delays because it can just help them out with the things that they're struggling with just on the day-to-day that some people wouldn't even think about. So I think a great assistive tool for him to use would be picture cards to communicate what he's thinking or what he's trying to express, what he needs or wants. That would help him with relating pictures to words and also helping him communicate. So it releases that frustration and ultimately hopefully minimizes his defiant behavior. And so those were all the questions for my Train the Trainers video. And I hope this was helpful for anyone wondering what the CDC milestones or the ASQs are good for and how to use them in a classroom.